What's up, everybody? My name is Jeffrey Gardner. Welcome back once again to another episode of Upset Alert. It is episode number 74 of the Ultimate College Football Podcast, celebrating all 130 teams in FBS. Got to address a couple things off the top of the show here real quick. First and foremost, we have so much to talk about on today's episode. We had, I think, unquestionably the biggest week of college football to this point in the season. Top 10 upsets all over the place. Big takeaways, I think. Some early overreactions, especially to some teams in the SEC playing their first games of the season this past weekend. All kinds of hot takes, I think, potentially incoming. Not to mention the fact that since we recorded our last episode on Thursday, we are talking about the Pac-12 rejoining college football, the MAC back in, the Mountain West back in addition to the Big Ten who had previously rejoined. So everybody, all 10 conferences in college football now have rejoined, plus UMass, the Minutemen, as an independent, have announced they will be playing college football later this fall as well. So that brings our count up to 127 of 130 eligible FBS football teams will play college football at some point this fall. Now, the scheduling is going to be a little bit all over the place. We don't have a Pac-12 schedule yet. We don't have a MAC or Mountain West schedule yet. When we get those, of course, we will give the details out on that, but we are talking about the Pac-12 doing the same thing the Big Ten is doing with that kind of Champions Week, where the 1 seed plays the 1 seed for the conference championship, and in that same week, 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, and so on. I do also want to, off the top of the show, address that if you hear some loud background noise, and I believe there was one just a moment ago, it actually made me jump a little bit. I wasn't expecting it. I am down here in sunny Orlando, Florida, and we are in the middle of a huge thunderstorm currently. So it is a distinct possibility that you hear some loud cracks of thunder in the background during this, possibly even some rain slapping against my windows, which are kind of nearby to where I'm recording currently as well. And it's also, I guess I should mention, a distinct possibility that at some point the power blinks and maybe the live stream here on Twitch goes out. We will have to wait and see on that one if the internet kind of blinks off for a minute. But of course, thank you so much. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. Thank you so much for joining us here live on twitch.tv/robotbraineater. For those of you live in the chat, please do feel free to drop your comments in the chat as we are recording here, and I'll be happy to read those out live on the show. I do have this video element playing some highlights. We'll have some kind of visual aids going on here as well. So for those of you who don't get a chance to watch it live, you want to watch the video version later, maybe see us physically go through the schedule and look at these games, see us watch some of these video highlights together. I do upload these to YouTube as well. The link to those normally we'll post on our Twitter account at UpsetAlertPod. On Twitter, if you do want to stay up to date on all of our news, college football news of the world, whether it's directly from us, letting you know when we're going live on Twitch, when we are posting podcasts to podcast services, etc., or whether it is just college football news from around the world, like the news today about JT Daniels, quarterback, being cleared at the University of Georgia. You know the Dogs fans are excited about that one, having another option at quarterback after the way the offense looked in the first half against Arkansas. We post that kind of stuff on there. Again, that's at Upset Alert Pod on Twitter. If you want to check that out as well, it is on the screen for those of you watching on video, so you don't forget. And of course, our main platforms that most of you guys listen on, we are on podcast services around the world. So Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, everything like that. Newly on Amazon Music as well. They, I think, are still kind of piloting their podcast program, but we are on that as well. I did shout this out on some of my personal social medias this past week. But just thank you so much to everybody who has been listening to the podcast, because we are over 1,000 organic downloads now, unique downloads, I guess would maybe be the proper terminology there. So thank you so much across the various podcast services for downloading, checking us out, listening to me ramble about college football, which is exactly what we're about to start doing now. So without any further ado, I've kind of rambled on too long for this intro here. Let's get into some college football chat, and let's see what we can get into as far as the Week 4 wrap up. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to our Week 4 schedule and just take a look down the line. We'll go in chronological order. This is from the ESPN website that I look at every week, just the full slate of games that we can get a look at here. So everything started off Thursday night, UAB at South Alabama. Not much to discuss there. UAB actually looked like the team that we think they should be. South Alabama looked like the team that we think they probably should be. Both of these teams, I think you would argue South Alabama has overperformed a little to this point in the year. UAB has underperformed a little, perhaps, to this point in the year. But they pick up the win 42-10 over USA. Good on the Blazers there. That is a good team out of Conference USA, as you all know, one of the teams that I am highest on in that conference. Middle Tennessee at UTSA. You have to give some credit here as well. UTSA, not one of the better teams in FBS, but Middle Tennessee has just looked horrible through the early goings here. Middle Tennessee is right down there in our updated rankings, which we just posted over on our Twitter recently. Middle Tennessee is right down there near the bottom. I think they're only above Louisiana Monroe, who has looked somehow even worse to this point in the season. But Middle Tennessee has been real bad. They lose this one 37-35. But how about the Roadrunners? Despite just the 2-point win here over a bad Middle Tennessee team, UTSA is undefeated to this point in the season. So how about it? 3-0 for the Roadrunners. You got to love it. Getting into the Saturday slate, and this is kind of a mixed bag. I think it's loosely sorted by ranking and then gets into the unranked matchups. So number 2, Alabama at Missouri. Not a ton to say here. I actually didn't catch any of this game, believe it or not, because I was trying to keep an eye. There were a lot of close games on Saturday, so I was kind of trying to keep an eye on the closer games. Alabama started off looking like they were just going to run way, way away on this one. Turned out not to be the case. Mizzou got back in it a little bit in garbage time. It was 38-19 the final. Not much to say there, as I didn't get to really catch that one. But you see Mac Jones got the start. Bryce Young, I know their true freshman quarterback, came into the game later on to get some crucial snaps. But yeah, 249 yards passing for Mac Jones. I know Alabama was taking care of business early with him at the helm. Kansas State at number 3, Oklahoma. This was one of the biggest games of the day. We had, as the title of this podcast, this episode implies, we had some top 10 upsets this week. Unranked teams upsetting top 10 teams. It nearly happened 3 times, but it did happen twice. Kansas State beats Oklahoma 38-35. Oklahoma actually looked like they were going to run away with this game. I believe it was 35-14 was their biggest margin. Kansas State comes back, scores all those unanswered points, all the unanswered points, 24 unanswered to be exact, to finish that one 38-35 over the Sooners. Really exciting stuff. Really exciting stuff there. Spencer Rattler puts up, I guess, some good passing yardage numbers, but threw, I believe, 3 picks in this game. So Kansas State actually battled their way back in this one. This was not a situation where sometimes you see that unranked team come in against a highly ranked opponent and maybe they just put it on early and get a trick play to go or something like that, and then it's hard for that team to battle from behind. This was not that. This was Oklahoma getting out to that big lead early, 3 scores, and Kansas State battling back in that one. So shouts to the Wildcats. They lost to Arkansas State just a week before, but they pick up the win over number 3 Oklahoma. And honestly, we have to say it like it is. The Big 12 is wide open. It is there for the taking. Oklahoma is 0-1 in the Big 12, if you can fathom that. Did not take them long to lose their first conference game of the year. It's funny because this is one that I actually in the offseason predicted Kansas State to beat Oklahoma this year, and because of the way the schedule changed and this being their first conference game, I backed off of that. I said, no way Oklahoma's going to get caught off guard in their first conference game of the year. Turns out they did. I got to go with my gut more often on the picks. The lesson learned there. Number 4, Georgia at Arkansas. There's two ways to look at this. One way is Georgia beat Arkansas 37-10 on the road in week 1 of a weird season with little preparation. That looks like a pretty decent win, right? Especially when you talk about Alabama, Missouri, 38-19, for example. But if you watch this game, it was 7-5 Arkansas at halftime. This was... And for those of you who have listened for a while, you know I am a Georgia fan. I don't try to hide that. I'm a Georgia alum. Watching this game was one of the ugliest first halves I have ever seen from a Georgia football team offensively. Defensively, the defense is fine. I think Georgia's issue in this game was the same issue they had most of last season, which was the offense's lack of production puts too much pressure on the defense to be perfect. And if the defense isn't perfect, it's like the world is falling all of a sudden. And that was what it felt like in this game, because the defense had the one lapse, gave up a big play for the Arkansas touchdown, and the offense just could not get anything going. Of course, second half, they come out, they look like a completely different team, outscore Arkansas. In the second half, I believe it was 32, I believe. 32-3 in the second half. Yes, that adds up. 7-5 at the end of the half. 32-5, Georgia outscores Arkansas in the second half. They never really got any big breakaway running plays, but they also didn't really commit to the run as a general rule. Starting quarterback Dwan Mathis did not look good in this at all. You can put that on it being his first college start. You can put it on whatever you want to call it, jitters, just maybe a weird offseason production, losing some reps in the offseason to Jamie Newman, who ultimately opted out of the college football season. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but Dwan Mathis was bad in this game. He did not look good. He didn't get much help from the offensive line at first. Didn't get much help from some of the receivers, looked like, with miscommunications there and kind of running game not getting going well on first down, so you're working with a lot of third and longs. But he did not look good. Full stop in this game. Stetson Bennett comes into the game kind of early in the, I guess it was late in the second quarter perhaps, and then stays in for the rest of the game as the quarterback. Stetson Bennett at the helm. This looked like a completely different offense. He throws a couple touchdown passes. He throws for over 200 yards, no picks. That's what you want to see if you're a Georgia fan, right? Stetson Bennett running this offense actually, to me, looked very reminiscent of a Jake Fromm-led Georgia offense. He's not out there doing anything really particularly sexy. He's not going to sling the rock 60, 70 yards down the field like a pure athlete like Mathis might be able to do. But he was accurate. He was more decisive. A little more aware, I guess, of his surroundings. There was a play early on. Dwan Mathis had a first down right in front of him, scrambling on third down, and stepped out of bounds a yard shy of the marker. So that's definitely frustrating offensively for the Dogs. So it'll be interesting to see going forward now. JT Daniels, the transfer quarterback from USC, former 5-star, has been medically cleared going into this Auburn game this coming week. Georgia cannot afford, safe to say, to start the game the way they did against Arkansas against Auburn. If they do that, they will be 1-1 after this coming Saturday. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the deal is at quarterback. Are they sticking with Stetson Bennett because he looked good in the second half? Are they going to go with a JT Daniels who has maybe a higher ceiling? Are they going to stick with a Dwan Mathis who maybe also has a higher ceiling and more of a dual threat quarterback? Honestly, absolutely no idea. The Georgia defense looks great, as always, though, is the biggest positive you could take away from that one as a Georgia fan. Number 5, Florida at Ole Miss. This was one that a lot of folks talked about because this is also a tale of two games to me. Florida wins 51-35 in Oxford here. This is Hugh Freeze's Ole Miss coaching debut, of course. So he put up some points, and he put up a lot of yards on the Gators in this football game. 35 points, of course, and really had an opportunity for more and left some points out there. Florida's defense did not look great, but we do think this is a great Ole Miss offense, probably, right? This is an offense that's going to be able to score a lot of points on a lot of teams. The Ole Miss defense looked awful. There are a lot of hot takes out there right now because Kyle Trask threw a whole bunch of touchdowns in this football game. He threw for 416 yards and I believe 6 passing touchdowns in this football game. Not much of a rushing attack for Florida, though they didn't need it because Kyle Trask was hitting everything. I don't know what was going on at the point in the middle of the game where it was really not wrapped up yet, where Dan Mullen decides to bring in Emory Jones for a drive. I don't get that decision. Emory Jones has not looked good as a general rule, especially as a passer in his time as a Florida Gator. Kyle Trask was having probably the best day of his football career. I think you could make a pretty safe statement there. So I don't get, when the game was not put away yet, bringing in Emory Jones at quarterback for a drive. Really didn't make a lot of sense to me. He threw a pick on that drive that allowed Ole Miss to kind of get a little closer back into the football game. But yeah, similar to what I said about Georgia. Georgia's defense looked fantastic. Their offense, you still have a lot of questions going into this game against Auburn this coming Saturday. Florida, your offense looked fantastic. Now, there's questions about how good Ole Miss's defense is. Similar to, I guess you could say, for Georgia, there's questions about how much resistance Arkansas's offense is really going to put up against your elite level defense. But Florida, you've got a lot of question marks at defense for me. I don't know going forward how this defense is going to be able to perform against the better offenses they play when they play against, I don't even know, do they even play any good offenses this year? I mean, they play Texas A&M later in the year. It's probably one of the better offenses that they'll play this year. But yeah, that game would be a little bit of a concern for me as a Florida fan. For Georgia, maybe you look at this and say, well, Florida's defense isn't as good as it was last year, so maybe our offense will play better against them. Maybe Tennessee's offense can give this Florida defense some trouble. I'm not sure, but that Florida offense, led by Kyle Trask, at least through the air right now, is looking very strong. And this was maybe the most talked about game of the week. Mississippi State, the Fighting Mike Leaches at number 6 LSU, Death Valley. We got a top 10 upset on here once again. The Mississippi State Bulldogs out of Starkville, Mississippi, win 44-34 over the defending national champions. And not only do they do that, in Mike Leach's first game as a head coach in the SEC, his quarterback, a transfer from Stanford, mind you, KJ Costello, throws for 623 yards. That is 623 yards in that game. That is the single game SEC passing record. Absolutely bonkers. Mike Leach, one game into his SEC head coaching career, breaks the SEC single game passing yards record with transfer quarterback KJ Costello. This Mississippi State offense is absolutely the real deal. I will own up to this and eat crow on this, on both sides of this, actually, and I'll start with the one that's more positive, I guess. Mississippi State, on the positive side of things, this was a team that in our preseason kind of aggregate poll, I told you guys how that poll was made if you've been listening to the show for a while, but essentially we had 14 different polls. One of them gave Mississippi State a top 25 vote. And so I was really shocked that someone voted for Mississippi State to be in the top 25, even one person out of 14. And I remember saying, this team is not a top 25 team. They're not even in probably the top 40 or 50, maybe. I just really was not super high on this team. Remember, they had some awful moments last year at times, especially with just a lack of production offensively, I would say. This is not the team I thought it was. I will own up to that 1,000%. They are comfortably inside our top 25 on our updated rankings, and that is even including the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the Mountain West, the MAC, everyone else. They are in the AP top 25 this week. They are all over everyone's rankings this week because this was an extremely impressive performance. While LSU, of course, went out there and did drop 34 on them, that's what we expected LSU to do, right? They're the defending national champions. Even with all the talent that LSU was losing, they were still going into this as a pretty heavy favorite. Mike Leach led this Mississippi State team into Death Valley in his SEC opener and picked up a 10-point win, not to mention dropped 44 points and set passing records in the process. Just crazy. Just crazy. I cannot fathom still that this happened. Miles Brennan, there's a lot of question marks at quarterback for LSU. It looks like almost more of the same, right? Miles Brennan almost looks like he is going to be in that old mold that we had for a while of LSU quarterback, specifically, where he is not going to be a Joe Burrow type. He's not going to go out there and sling the rock all over the yard. He's going to be a game manager who's going to throw some bad passes. He's going to miss some guys. He's going to make some bad decisions. LSU has got to get better down the road. Bottom line, we will see over the next few weeks as these teams get deeper into their conference schedules how good Mississippi State is actually, how bad LSU is actually. LSU, I think, is still a top 25 team. Mississippi State, it will be determined if they are going to be here to stay, really. We'll have to see how they perform against this 10-game conference-only gauntlet that is the SEC schedule this year. It's going to be brutal, but I got to tell you, as a Georgia fan, I thought we got an easy draw, right? Playing Arkansas and Mississippi State out of the West were the two extra games that got added for Georgia this year. Mississippi State coming to Athens, that is not an easy win anymore, it doesn't look like. So that is something to keep your eye on, especially the matchup of Mike Leach's air raid offense versus that elite Georgia defense. That's going to be a fun game later on in the season, so definitely one to keep your eye out for. And of course, the Egg Bowl, as always, is going to be one to watch. Mike Leach and Hugh Freeze in the same building. Watch out for the fireworks. But I have to say, I know I'm dragging on through a lot of these SEC games just because it was our first look at all of these teams. Early overreaction. I predicted when we thought the Big Ten was out, when we thought the Pac-12 was out, everything like that, I predicted the playoff teams to be Clemson, Georgia, Oklahoma, and LSU. I what an idiot. Let's start right there. What kind of idiot would have picked LSU to make the college football playoff this year? I suppose it's still possible in theory, but this LSU team, from what we saw, they are not doing that. They're not even coming close to that. So well, let's take a brief pause in the kind of middle of this here, in middle of working our way through the schedule, to just say, I am entitled to a do-over here, right? I am entitled to a do-over because so many other conferences have joined at this point. And I have to say, based on what we've seen so far, I don't like Oklahoma to make that playoff. I don't like LSU to make that playoff, certainly. Georgia, I have cooled off on maybe a little bit, but actually not significantly. So if I'm going to just rattle off quickly what my updated playoff prediction is, and I'll throw this out there on Twitter too, since we're just going to kind of fly through this on here. I like Clemson still. They have a pretty direct path to the playoff. I like Ohio State out of the Big Ten. I think they have a pretty clear path to the playoff. I don't think the Pac-12 makes it. I don't think the Big 12 makes it either. I think it's Clemson, Ohio State, whoever the SEC winner is, which I still do think will likely be, let's put it this way, it is definitely going to be Alabama, Georgia, or Florida. It's going to be one of those three. I don't really see anyone else at this point in time as a serious conference championship contender in the SEC. I still like Georgia. I still like Georgia to win the SEC this year. So I'm going to say I'm going to say Clemson, Ohio State, and Georgia. And I think it's going to be hard to keep a second SEC team out. But it really does depend on how the season goes. It could be Alabama. It could be Florida. And if we want to get real crazy, it could be UCF in that fourth spot. It could be potentially someone like that. I think it's even, in some ways, even harder for a group of 5 team to make it into the playoff this year, just given that they're not really playing any high-profile out-of-conference games. But I think most likely Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and probably an Alabama or Florida in there at the fourth spot, depending on how Florida's season goes. Their odds just shot up drastically against LSU for the coming year based on the Tigers' performance this week. But let's keep rumbling through these, and let's kind of pick up the pace a little bit. I know I'm dragging along. I knew this would be a long episode, just given the amount of things that happened around college football this week. We had number 23 Kentucky at number 8 Auburn. Auburn wins that one 29-13. Just quick gut reaction thoughts here. Bo Nix looked pretty good in this game. Terry Wilson at quarterback for Kentucky looks very good. I do think Kentucky is going to be a good team this year. They just ultimately can't close it out against Auburn. I will say there was a call that absolutely robbed Kentucky of a touchdown in this game. I don't think it ultimately would have made the difference in the game, but it was a back and forth kind of game early that Auburn pulled away in late. There was a really goofy sequence in here at one point that if you get the chance, you should check out highlights of it on YouTube. At one point, you get Kentucky, who has the bad call, overturn a touchdown play to say that he was short of the end zone. The running back, I believe it was Cavassier Smoke in this case, he has the call overturned so that it's not a touchdown for Kentucky, which, again, was a terrible call. You have, after that call gets overturned, Kentucky decides they're going to pass the ball from the 1-yard line. They pass it and throw a 100-yard pick six, which is then called back for a targeting call. So ultimately, Auburn winds up starting that drive on their 10 or 15-yard line, I believe, and a player getting ejected. That, I think, was just the most college football sequence I have seen this year. It was pretty wild. Just a swing of momentum back and forth there. but Auburn comes out with a solid win there again. Auburn and Georgia this coming Saturday. That is where College Game Day will be. That is the best game of the coming week, and that will answer a lot of our questions about the SEC this year. Number 8, Texas at Texas Tech. This one was nearly another top 10 upset. The Longhorns and the Red Raiders go to overtime. This after the Red Raiders took a late lead by multiple scores. You see the memes online this week of the Texas Tech quarterback throwing down the upside down horns symbol, and Texas coming back after that, and folks saying picture taken moments before a disaster, I think is the caption on there. Texas wins 63-56 in that one, so a wild shootout between the Red Raiders and the Longhorns. Vanderbilt at number 10, Texas A&M, another close top 10 versus unranked game. A&M wins 17-12 in this one. Vandy just refused to win this game, and Texas A&M just refused to put Vandy away. It was back and forth, sloppy play, a lot of turnovers from Texas A&M in this football game. Vandy stuck in there the whole time with them. You've got to give credit where credit's due to the Commodores. Derek Mason's squad looked great at times, but they just don't have the talent, I think, ultimately to keep up with a team like Texas A&M coming down the stretch of the game. Texas A&M did not impress in this game at all. I am happy to stick with my prediction of them going 5-5 in SEC play this year. Florida State at number 12, Miami. I told you guys on Thursday this was a horrible choice for College Game Day because it was not going to be a good game. It wasn't. 52-10 Miami in this one. De'Ara King looks great. Miami looks great. Quite frankly, they are emerging as a true contender in the ACC this year. Number 13, UCF at East Carolina. Not much to talk about there. UCF 51-28. Number 14, Cincinnati hosting number 22, Army. Cincinnati wins by 2 touchdowns, 24-10. Cincinnati showing why they are perhaps the favorite in the American Athletic Conference. Them and UCF, I think, are right there. West Virginia at number 15, Oklahoma State. OK State picks up a win. Slightly better looking than their win against Tulsa last week, but still not really sexy. 27-13 over an unranked West Virginia team. Oklahoma State, however, all they got to do is just keep winning because that's more than Oklahoma's done so far. South Carolina hosting number 16, Tennessee. This was one of the evening games in the SEC. Was a really good game. Back and forth. I kind of thought this would be one of the sneaky good games of the week, and it was. South Carolina ultimately loses this one 31-27 for Tennessee in that one. But a lot of good play in this game. It actually ends in a heartbreaking fashion, I think, in this one. South Carolina unintentionally touches a punt. They were set to get the ball back down by 4 with just over, I think it was like a minute and a half or so left in the game, maybe just under a minute and a half. South Carolina player unintentionally touches the punt. Tennessee falls on it, and that's your ball game. All they do is assume victory formation. Heartbreaking way to lose that one, though. Number 18, BYU hosting Troy. BYU continues to dominate offensively, 48-7 over the Trojans in that one. Number 19, Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns. One of the, I guess, darling teams of 2020 right now. Maybe one of those legit group of 5 contender-type teams. Definitely looking like the favorite in the Sun Belt. They're hosting Georgia Southern this past week, and Georgia Southern, speaking of heartbreaking ways to lose a game, Georgia Southern, it hurts. It hurts. Yeah, give a socially distanced hug to your Georgia Southern friends this week. It was 20-18, the final for Louisiana. If you didn't get a chance to catch this game, and I'm assuming most people probably didn't, quite frankly, I realize it was a big slate this weekend. It's a Sun Belt football game. Not everyone's going to check that out. But Georgia Southern had a chance late to score a big touchdown. They've got, I believe it was a tight end who was streaking down the sideline, had room to just stay upright if he could maintain his balance and just walk into the end zone for a touchdown, dives for the goal line instead, and the ball comes out about a foot shy of the goal line, fumbles into the end zone for a touchback and a Louisiana football. And then ultimately, they still managed to score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to take an 18-17 lead with just under a minute to go. I think it was 54 seconds on the clock when they kicked off to the Raging Cajuns. Raging Cajuns, courtesy of Levi Lewis, march right down the field into field goal range, and their kicker boots a 53-yarder. As time expires, the Raging Cajuns survive. Back-to-back weeks of struggling, though, against lesser Sunbelt competition. They took Georgia State to overtime. They needed a game-winning field goal as time expired to beat Georgia Southern. This Louisiana team's win against Iowa State is starting to look a little fluky, but they nonetheless are 2-0 in the conference and sitting pretty. Number 20, Virginia Tech hosted NC State. Virginia Tech looked pretty good in this one. They win 45-24. Number 21, Pitt hosting number 24, Louisville. Pitt comes out with another win, 23-20. They are looking good. Louisville, of course, the big storyline in this football game, Malik Cunningham had a serious injury, at least it would appear. Carted off the field. You gotta hope the best, especially for a player of his caliber. It's not just personally wishing well for him, but also for the betterment of college football. He's just one of the more exciting players in the conference this year out of the ACC. You gotta hope for the best for Malik Cunningham, seeing him get carted off the field like that in that game. Syracuse hosted Georgia Tech, wins 37-20. I told you guys about this one. I will claim the I told you so there. Georgia Tech is bad. They are really bad, and their week one for the ACC anyway, performance against Florida State looks less and less impressive by the day. Florida State is absolutely awful. We will get to that in just a second here, though. Campbell or I guess we already got to that, with the Miami game. Florida State got blown out, of course, by Miami. Campbell at App State. App State drops a 50-burger, 52-21 over Campbell. You don't like giving up 21 to an FCS team, but I think App State will take it compared to the loss to Marshall. Florida International at Liberty. Liberty continues to roll 36-34. They've got wins over Western Kentucky and Florida International now, so shout out to the Liberty Flames. TCU hosting Iowa State. Iowa State wins a close one, 37-34. Tulane at Southern Miss. I'm off the Southern Miss bandwagon. This is I don't think at this point an early overreaction. Southern Miss is a team I picked to go to the Conference USA Championship game and face UAB. I picked UAB ultimately to win the conference, but I am liking some other teams more than Southern Miss out of Conference USA right now. Teams like Louisiana Tech, for example. Southern Miss, I've picked for 2 weeks in a row to bounce back with a win, and 2 weeks in a row they have underperformed. The Louisiana Tech game they had that came down to the wire was at least a competitive performance. They did not get off the bus to play the Tulane Green Wave 66-24 at home. Southern Miss loses to Tulane. I'm off the bandwagon for Southern Miss. I think they're going to have an awful year. At this point, it seems pretty inevitable. This is a game I told you might be a battle for the worst team in FBS this year, or at least one of them. UTEP at UL Monroe. I have got to give credit where credit's due. Okay, all off season, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I've been saying UTEP is the worst team in college football. I've been saying that all off season, and I have to give credit to UTEP, right? They are 3-1, okay? I understand a lot of that is because of scheduling changes. They added a couple FCS teams they didn't have on there before, but the UTEP Miners are 3-1, and you cannot take that away from them. They actually win 31-6 in this matchup, and losing 31-6 to UTEP is part of the reason why Louisiana Monroe is coming in at 127 out of 127 on our updated college football rankings. But I will shout out Twitter user at LouTepMiner. LouTepMiner. On Twitter saying not last. Quote, retweeting our rankings of the of every college football team, saying not last for UTEP. You are not last, UTEP, and you did not deserve to be last. I owe you an apology, actually. This is a good win. A win I wouldn't have picked UTEP early on in the season to get. But shout out to the Warhawks of Louisiana Monroe for being really bad to this point in the season. They just have not really shown us much of anything. UTEP comes out here and puts the hurt on them 31-6. So how about the Miners showing us a little bit of something? I understand you had some close wins against some FCS teams that were pretty ugly, but hey, 31-6 over UL Monroe, not too bad. Duke at Virginia. UVA wins 38-20. Not much to talk about in that one, honestly. Boston College and Texas State played a close one. Boston College comes back in this one. Texas State, I believe, was up 21-7. Boston College comes back to win 24-21. This is not a great look for BC, though we didn't expect them to be particularly great. Texas State, it's, I guess you overperform maybe a little bit in this one, so maybe a slight moral victory against an ACC opponent. Louisiana Tech continues their winning ways. They win 66-38 over Houston Baptist. SMU, also against an FCS opponent, wins 50-7. Baylor, hosting Kansas, wins 47-14. That one went about exactly as you would expect it to go. And then just to remind you here, we did have a few games get postponed this weekend. Number 7, Notre Dame at Wake Forest, Georgia State at Charlotte, Tulsa at Arkansas State, South Florida at Florida Atlantic, and North Texas at Houston were all postponed this past weekend. But we had a lot of great football. This past weekend. It is an exciting time, I think, to be a college football fan. We have got so much coming up this coming weekend as well. Of note, just to give you a little bit of a preview, and of course on Thursday's episode we'll get into our actual predictions for all of these games. But just to give you a little bit of a preview here, we've got South Carolina at Florida, TCU at Texas, Louisiana Tech at BYU, Baylor, West Virginia, Texas A&M, Alabama, Memphis, SMU, a big matchup in the American Athletic Conference there. LSU Vanderbilt, that's not too exciting actually. Oklahoma, Iowa State, and of course Auburn at Georgia is the kind of college game day matchup game there for this coming week. So it's pretty exciting stuff. We've got a lot going on this week in college football coming up, and we'll get into, as I said, all of our official predictions and all of that jazz on Thursday's episode. In the meantime, if you want to keep up with the news of the college football world, please do give us a follow on Twitter at Upset Alert Pod on Twitter. We try our best to stay up to date on everything there. It's just me running the account, so I do as much as I can without driving myself crazy staying on my phone and computer all the time. But I do my best to try to keep up to date on the news of the college football world on there, as well as just to keep everyone posted on when we are going live on Twitch, when we're posting podcasts, everything like that. But a big slate of college football games this coming week to look forward to. And like I said, in the meantime, check us out over on there. If you do subscribe to us on podcast services already, thank you so very much, first of all. If you haven't yet and you're liking what you're hearing, please do check us out. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, whatever your favorite podcast service is. Please do subscribe or follow, like, whatever the service lets you do on there. Please do that for our show. And if you do have the time, I appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review. Greatly helps us to get more eyeballs and more ears on the podcast. If you ever want to watch us live on video, it's on twitch.tv/robotbraineater. That's where we're broadcasting from currently. So please do check us out on there. It is my personal Twitch account, so I do post other content on there as well. But if you do want to follow us at twitch.tv/robotbraineater, that is where we go live on videos. You'll get email notifications whenever we do go live with the podcast, so that you can come and hang out in our chat here and drop your comments and just have a good time enjoying the video highlights and everything like that. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, those get uploaded later on to YouTube as well. But I have rambled on far too long at this point, I think. It was a great week for college football, everyone. It was the most normal feeling week, I think, of college football to this point, in that it was a crazy and abnormal week of college football with multiple top 10 upsets, multiple upset close calls, I would say, also in the top 10. And we have a lot to look forward to. Big Ten football coming in just about a month here. Pac-12 football coming right after that. Mountain West and MAC football coming around the same time. Lots and lots and lots to look forward to. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you do have a wonderful rest of your day. And until Thursday, we will see you later.